Welcome into 11 Personnel presented by Monticello Bank. Nick Roush and Adam Luckett here with you right before the summer officially kicks up. I guess the summer technically did already kick off with Memorial Day this weekend. I apologize for my tardiness. We went out and watched the DeSales Colts tonight in the 6th Region Championship. Luckett, no dice. Close, no cigar. Fell to PRP. It's a tale as old as time. I've seen that game 10 other times in my life. But your St. X Tigers, they're still alive. They're playing the Rocks right now. A little rivalry action, 1 versus 2 in the 7th Region Finals.
That's right. Winner wins the state title.
I don't think that's how it works, but that's probably how it's going to work.
Are you sure? We'll revisit that. You all know my high school basketball predictions were ironclad, as you know.
We have Pete come on the radio show and present all these ideas, just kind of out of the box stuff. They're never going to figure out a good way to get a state champion in the state of Kentucky. Like, the best team almost never wins the state title in any of their sports except football. But I know nobody likes class systems, but that's kind of how it works. Especially a single elimination baseball tournament. That's just going to get crazy, you know?
That's what I was going to say for baseball, but basketball, you know, I think they had that weird layoff this year too. So that was just like, of course, that tournament got funky.
Mm-hmm. But it is what it is. We're not here to talk about that. We're here, man. That fan is going to drive me nuts. I thought I turned it off. I'm all out of sorts tonight, Luckett.
Yeah, the
all
conference,
out of sorts.
The conference cannot decide on anything, and it's just driving Nick Roush crazy.
It was going to drive me absolutely nuts. I'm sure it was going to drive our viewers crazy too. But what won't drive you crazy is our friends at Monticello Bank, proud presenting sponsors of 11 Personnel for a very long time. We appreciate their support. We appreciate you supporting them. We appreciate how they support the community, because at Monticello Bank, it's where people matter. They've been in business for over 125 years in the Commonwealth, serving the entire Commonwealth. They're in a bunch of different counties too across the state. I believe it's 20 branches in 14 different counties. So they're not far from you, and they're also online at nbcbank.com. Check out the HELOC special going on right now. See what you can do with the equity in your home with their HELOC special home equity line of credit at Monticello Bank, where people matter. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Monticello Bank, proud presenting sponsors of 11 Personnel. And Luckett, maybe next year we need to go on a business trip. We can take some clients from Monticello Bank and we can go down to Destin and hang out for a few days. Because it doesn't sound like the worst gig, you know?
The absolute best kind of nugget I heard this week was John Talty was on with Feinbaum, and he was like, yeah, I was the only reporter at Big Ten Media Days in Los Angeles last week. There's like 100 of us here for this. So, yeah, it hits a little different for this event for sure.
Destin feels like a reporter's kind of vacation spot too.
Oh, I mean, like you could totally parlay that into a family vacation, right? Go down there, work a couple days, and then you're already there.
Have the wife drive the kids down. Yeah.
Right. I would love to have media days. Can we get a media days in Destin? That would be sweet.
I mean, but seriously though, they do it for this. Why not? Tampa at least? St. Pete? Like, can we get some beachy venue? Can we have the media hotel on the beach like they do down here at Destin? Because Paul is the only person who looks miserable down there. Everybody else looks like they're having a good time. Feinbaum just looks like he's sweating and pissed off on that beach.
Well, it comes off as like he's got no shade. He's just out there like baking in the sun. Poor guy, they won't let him wear a hat, so he's got to put sunscreen on probably every 10 minutes on the dome. So yeah, he doesn't look super thrilled to be out there, but it's not as bad as in season when it starts getting cold and they stick him outside. You see him with he's got the jacket on. You know he's got the heaters underneath.
Yeah. I do appreciate though that since spring meetings is so far removed from any sort of actual games, you know, he unbuttons the button a little, right? Like you got cool, slick back Feinbaum, and he's got all the other coaches on, and they're a lot more laid back. I mean, Kirby's kind of firing shots at him. Him and Lane, their little rat-a-tat-tat, that was something else.
Yeah.
It makes things a lot more fun.
Yeah, it's just what more beach vibe. I think these used to not be that important. I wouldn't say not that important, but not a lot of stuff happened. Where now it's
Right.
become like a thing for the league, where they discuss some big topics and everyone's there. Like the whole conference is there. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of media people go because it's a good way to get like one-on-one time with folks because you're
Yeah.
all just there
With your head
hanging
coach,
out.
your basketball, your football. They got women's basketball down there.
Right. Like it's
And
not just
yeah.
like the football coach. It's not just like media days where it's just football people. There's university presidents,
Mm-hmm.
ADs, all of them. And like you could go into establishments probably last night in Destin, Florida, and they're all there just hanging out.
Was Mark Stoops there?
We have no physical evidence that he was in
Any
Destin on the internet.
any proof of life of Mark Stoops down there?
I have seen no evidence. The only UK thing I've seen this week has been, well, I guess Daryl Bird talked to Mark Pope last night, so that was a sign.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mitch Barnhart was on with Feinbaum today.
But the longest tenured head coach in the conference, he did not share his thoughts on the
I
conference.
don't think he's ever talked at this thing.
Which is pretty impressive.
I haven't gone, so I don't really know kind of the setup. But what, from my understanding, is they have like the media just hangs out in like kind of a lobby area,
Mm-hmm.
and coaches walk in and out. I remember when there was the Jimbo versus Saban thing going on heading into this event. Like they were outside watching him pull in the cars, and you saw like Kirby pull up, and then right behind him was Jimbo, and Jimbo did the old Billy Gillespie acting like he was taking a phone call, so he didn't have to talk to anybody. So I guess they'll walk by, and then I think they'll ask if some guys will talk, and some will turn it down, and some will talk. So you've seen quotes be put out from a few coaches, but Stoops is one of the ones that typically he does not say. Typically, you don't. The only really quote I ever remember coming out of this event was when Kirby Smart kind of unveiled at Media Days one year that Stoops told him to stop crying from the yacht.
Which he brought up again.
Complaining about CFP. I can't even remember what they were complaining about. Complaining about recruiting while the college football playoff was going on was what that was about. So, yeah, he usually keeps a low profile this week. And Mitch sometimes will go on with Feinbaum, it feels like. Not every year, but more than like a couple times. It feels like he's jumped in front of a camera, which he never really does, really.
Right,
ever.
Right. To your point, though, this was it was like Daryl Bird would get some stuff for the cat's paws, and that was pretty much it. And we didn't hear much anything else from spring meetings. But even just since you started, Luckett, I mean, you go back to the COVID one where they had the seating chart, and you could see where everybody was sitting around the table as they were all arguing over 8-game or 9-game schedule. That was the genesis of these sort of big picture debates. It was the 8 versus the 9-game schedule. And that was one that, even though I don't even think Stoops had to do any public lobbying, they won that fight. Him and Barnhart won that fight the first go around.
I think you could say it was considered an upset because the consensus was going into that they were going to switch. And I think they, with Mitch leading the charge, I think convinced people, enough people, specifically teams
Nick
that
Saban.
you wouldn't. Well, not even. I think Saban switched his tune the year after, for one reason or the other. I can't remember. But that first time, I think they really got kind of like in Arkansas, a Mississippi State, teams of that ilk on with them to kind of, because they want it to be pretty close to unanimous, I think, or unanimous if they make a change like that.
Yeah.
And there was enough there where I think Barnhart kind of led that charge. And then the next year, Saban changed his tune. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't remember why.
His big thing was playoff realignment. Like, why are we making it harder on us than we should when we don't know how the committee's going to treat us? That was kind of the buttons and levers that they pushed and pulled. And a lot of it was based on, hey, if we're going to play more games, are they going to pay us more money? Which, going into this event, we learned that ESPN was willing to pay more money for an extra game, but that hasn't even. It's the second year in a row where I'm sure that it's came up somewhat, but it's like the 10th thing down. So on your pecking order, what is the most intriguing news that you've heard from the spring meeting so far? What's the thing that jumped out to Adam Luckett most?
Yeah, I think the thing you really need to know here is that, in my belief, on two items, the SEC coaches are drawing a line in the sand here, and it's different than I think what their administrators want. The SEC coaches, and they supported the AFCA, which came out with this in January. They want a single portal window, and they want a 10-day window in January. They do not want to have a 10-day window in May. They do not want to have a 10-day window in April. They want a 10-day window in January, or they want to keep the same format. That is their proposal. That's what they want to fix the portal. At the Big Ten meetings, I think the Big Ten coaches kind of thought like, hey, March and April might be a good month for us. Kirby Smart was adamant about that this week. The first thing he said was, you're all worried about the wrong things. We're worried about the portal. That is our biggest issue right now, and we don't want a portal in May because then it leaks into June. June's the biggest recruiting month for us. Mm-hmm. We're going to have to portal, recruit high schoolers, do everything. We want a portal window in January, and it would be after the quarterfinals. So you would only have 4 teams left still playing at the time that would all start. And so that's when they would like to have that. And the other one,
and they, in doing that, they also, it goes back to what you said, because I'm kind of one of those that I feel like May makes the most sense, but they get to get their guys on campus to do their spring workouts. There's logistical issues behind it all. Do you start school later to get these kids in? How does that, the timing of it all, there just isn't much time to get kids on campus to enroll in classes, and that's what's supposed to be a big deal, a big part of this whole thing.
To me, it would structurally, and I mean in a huge way, change how they do the offseason. It would be like the NFL, where we would have a long kind of, I think, OTA session, mini camp type season. And instead of us covering the spring practice in February, March, our Aprils and May would be kind of
more of a thing.
If they did it like that. I think they wouldn't do it in May. I think the most likely one would be like a March, April type thing. So they could get them that can be done, and they can get them kind of onboarded and into a summer session. Well, those summer sessions start around Memorial Day at some universities. I think that's more likely when it would be, which is perfect. Let's have it during the NCAA basketball tournament. That's what we need. That's what the content gods need to give KentuckySportsRadio.com. But
before we get to the second thing, before we get off of transferring, because that was my favorite thing that was brought up, because I want it moved. I don't like having the portal in December. It's too much all at once. I don't like it. Very amused that not only are the SEC coaches in disagreement with the administrators, but basically everybody's just at odds with one another. The Big Ten wanted March or April. So, it's the office, all 3 people shooting at each other. And
sure,
that's what this entire offseason feels like it.
Just a mess. Yeah.
Just nobody can agree on diddly, and they're all arguing over when something should happen here, there, or wherever. And they're just at odds with one another. There's no way around it.
And I think there's going to be a push from the admin side to maybe do it later, because I think how your budget would set up, it just kind of resets then.
Mm-hmm.
With the house settlement and how you're paying players, I'm no poly payroll here, but I feel like that could get kind of complicated when you're overlapping and you don't have a calendar. Now, I'm sure Stevie spreadsheets can figure out a way, but that just.
But it makes sense to have a beginning of the year and an end of the year, and it
all fiscal. It makes sense to have a fiscal calendar. Yes,
right. A normal A normal organization would operate like that, but this is college football, and nothing about it is normal like it. Absolutely
Yeah,
nothing.
100% agree.
So I'm with that. That was what jumped out to me the most. I'm curious if are you going to go college football playoff at number 2?
Yeah, and then I think the second one is all right. I think it's important to know here that, like, for better or worse, the Big Ten is kind of in lockstep with the SEC and vice versa. Tony Petitti is the Big Ten commissioner. Tony Petitti has a background in kind of TV. Like, Tony Petitti was kind of one of the people that helped, like, create the wild card playing game for Major League Baseball, and that for the most part has been a big hit. NBA playoffs have
Nice
playing
pun.
games. NBA playoff games have playing games. They have mostly been a swish. Like, people watch them even though they're bad teams.
Yeah.
Because it's like a perfect kind of appetizer toward before your playoffs start.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, for an NBA, it's a long season. It's like, all right, finally the playoffs are here. This is why we kind of do all of this stuff all year. The playoffs are here, and it's like, here's this. You know, the good stuff doesn't come later, but you're so excited for it, you don't care. So I think that has kind of worked. So they want to do playing games. Long story short, but I know a lot of people are saying, "Well, playing games are stupid. I don't want to do playing games." You have to look all of this in a prism of, is this gonna make our ass money?
Yes, and they are in the business of making as much money as possible.
You have to think how these suits think. Like, you have to think why Tony Petitti was hired. Tony Petitti was hired to make the Big Ten more money. And this is his specialty. So in the SEC, I think, is with them for better or worse. Like I said, all these schools, Nick, need to make more money. They have payrolls they're going to have to meet to prevent the cutting of sports, which most of these, I think, presidents and athletic directors want to do. That is, like, I think, up towards the top of their goal sheet, is to not have to do that. To prevent that from happening, you're gonna have to find other streams of revenue. For the SEC particular, if ESPN is willing to pay you more money to go to 9 games, I have a feeling Sankey and who Sankey works for, which to me are the presidents and the ADs way before the football coaches.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna push hard, I think, for these 9 games. And for 9 games to happen, it kind of has to be in this play-in model. And then with the play-in model, you're going to have a play-in game. So Championship Saturday, there will be 3 SEC games, and the top 6 SEC teams will be essentially playing for playoff access. We'll be playing for a playoff bid on that. There will be 2 campus games within those, and there will be 1 game in Atlanta, which will be 1 versus 2. It will be 3 hosting number 6. It will be 4 hosting number 5, and that would be for the Big Ten and the SEC. It would totally revamp Championship Saturday, and it would set up a system to go into this 16-team playoff that they're setting up. But the coaches, again, are fighting this, and they've let it known. Now, for reasons that don't make any sense to me, the ACC and the Big 12 are turning down 2 bids a year.
Yeah,
that makes absolutely no sense, but that they have chosen this is the route they want to take. So they want the system we have now plus more automatic bids. So they want 5 plus 11. Go ahead.
I would, just from a logical, rational standpoint, like 5 plus 11, which is basically what we're doing now, but you're just adding more at-large bids. Doing that with a true 16-team tournament makes the most sense to me. From a just like, let's make this as least convoluted as possible. Crowning a champion should be done in a way that second graders can understand it. Fourth graders that are making tournaments.
It will be very close to how the basketball does it. Except it's less teams, but when you kind of balance it out, I would say percentage-wise, it gets probably pretty close.
Well, the part that it does baffle me is that on the one hand, I totally get why people are mad at the SEC and all that, but on the other hand, SEC and Big Ten are going to have half the teams every year no matter what. So like,
I think I think the autos matter more for the Big Ten because if you kind of pull Ross Dellinger has kind of put this in a chart and he has it on his Twitter account. I threw it in a post this morning on KSR when I kind of recapped
mhm.
kind of what's going on. They like if you average it out per year, the SEC would go above that number, and the Big Ten will be right at it, some years behind. So like,
Right. You have
so
years
for
where,
them,
yeah,
for them, it makes more sense. And again, I think the SEC is just kind of along for the ride. And Sankey very much gave out a tone this week of like,
yeah.
I'm not, I'm not making all these decisions.
I'm
You are
I'm
getting mad at me.
I'm not the evil empire or the
Yeah, we haven't
emperor.
even decided what we're gonna do. We're still gonna discuss it, like as a family,
He
as a
had
big old family.
there was one quote in particular where he was like, "I'm not self-serving. That I represent the universities and the athletic directors." And I forget the exact turn of phrase he had, where he was sort of trying to step back a little bit. How much do I believe that? I don't know, but there is this notion that Sankey is the guy who's making every single decision, and he does not want that out there.
Yeah, he doesn't. I don't think he loves kind of how Petitti's going about this. Like Petitti didn't talk at the Big Ten thing. I mean,
Yeah,
there's only one media person there, but he doesn't talk.
I don't know if I've ever heard him talk. Like, I don't even know if I know what
I,
he would look like.
he will go to like some press conference, like Maryland's AD. They hired a new AD and they had a press conference, and he kind of introduced him, but he didn't talk to the media there. So like he doesn't talk.
He looks like a Tony Petitti.
He doesn't talk, so I think that puts like a little bit more pressure. Now the Big Ten's not covered like the SEC. Like
Yeah, it
their
does
media
mean
day.
more.
Yeah, I mean, just not. It's just totally different. I mean, that's not. I'm not. This just is what it is. It's a totally different thing. So basically, back to the 5-11. The 5-11. I think the coaches have heard this. Or like that these leagues want to do it. Why don't we just do it this way? It's going to be the best way for us to do it. Now you put more pressure. You put more on a selection committee, which has been something the SEC, I think, really Sankey and kind of the admin have been outspoken about. They don't want to deal with a committee. Auto bids are it's just a more clean cut process every year. What you're going to have getting into that field.
Yeah. I like the chaos, though. And as much as I hate the hand wringing over who deserves it or not, and I get just nauseated by the amount of strength of schedule talk, I love bringing some of this college basketball madness into college football. Whereas in basketball, it usually doesn't revolve around teams that are actually good, right? Like it's usually these bubble teams that stink. But in football, like the sport is built on chaos, and that just adds extra chaos to it. And here's the other part too, that just kind of pisses me off about all of it. Like Alabama, don't get your ass kicked by a terrible Oklahoma team. Oklahoma they couldn't score on DeSales last year, and they won 24-3 against you. Like, don't go lose at Vanderbilt. I mean, like, just take care of business in one of those games. Like, a lot of this stuff for the hand-wringing on these teams that didn't make the playoff last year, like, you know what you could have done? You could have just not lost those games. Ole Miss, you were at Florida. That was your win and get-in game. And the Giants quarterback just pissed down his leg and was just throwing moonball interceptions that you and I could have caught. They were like punt returns for those Florida safeties. I mean, it was terrible. It was a meltdown of all meltdowns. You want to be in the playoff? Don't lose to Kentucky. So that's part of why I can't. I go back to the no crying on the yacht thing. Whereas, like, I get it from the transfer portal sentiment because it's just stupid and doesn't make sense. But at least in the selection committee, like, we have this in other sports. We deal with this. And a lot of the resume stuff, like, I don't feel sorry that a blue blood name didn't get in an SMU and an Arizona State got in. I know Arizona State's a different circumstance, but, like, you know what? It's kind of fun seeing different colors in there. Because here's the thing, Luckett. When you get down to the last four, it's almost always going to be those brand names. The teams at the top of the sport. Penn State was a little bit of an outlier from the old playoff format, right? They were always one of those fringe teams. But you kind of expected one of those fringes to break through and maybe win a playoff game and get in, right? But, like, this is a sport with limited access. We're just giving off this facade of access to all these other teams. And you know what? If more at-large bids, I don't even know which one would give more access to. More at-larges or more automatic qualifiers? Back to your original point, like, Louisville's more likely to get in if they've got 2 auto bids in the ACC. Kentucky's more likely to get in if they've got 4 SEC bids. So, like, I think a lot of this is just, the Stuart Mandells of the world and, like, all these, like, self-righteous ass media members who are just getting really super pissy. Because they see the SEC and Big Ten as pulling the strings. They're like, well, they're just going to make more money. And it's like, well, guaranteeing the ACC and Big 12 chances to get in is probably going to do well for them too.
Yeah, I think I think it's a general kind of, we're like, I just don't think we're seeing the full picture, which is hard to know. Like, there's a lot of people are upset about this AQ process, but I don't think it's that big. I really don't think it's that big of a deal. These teams are getting in anyway. Why do you care if they're AQs? Like, to me, I would say most years, locked, sealed, delivered, 7 of the 8 would be in no matter what. And then they're probably going to be maybe one team every once in a while that's like, yeah. But I think that you're kind of rewarding them for playing in what is a really tough conference, playing 9 games in a really tough conference. To your point about the selection committee, I think the selection committee has gotten it right, but football is a small sample size sport. It's kind of hard to use metrics as they do in the NCAA basketball because there's not as many like football. I would
points.
Say it's not as data driven of a sport, and there's not enough data points because you don't play enough games.
Mm-hmm.
It's just hard to do when you kind of look at it through that lens. And so with all of that, I think the SEC coaches are seeing, hey now, like this league does not, like, they're going to give up, like, they're going to have all these bids, and they're looking at it through, I think, the lens of last year and saying, well, hell, South Carolina, Ole Miss, and Bama would have all gotten in. And we would have had, then we would have all been really happy about that. I think the big thing Sankey is trying to accomplish, he wants his league. When you go 9-3 and you have a winning record in the SEC, you are a top 15 team in the country.
Right.
I don't think that's crazy to say.
Yeah.
He wants those teams to be in without like any drama. Like all those teams should kind of be in. I think that's kind of the reason they like this 4-4-2-2, 1-1-1, whatever it is. But to me, it's kind of the coaches drawing a line in the sand here, also because they want to stay at 8 games. That came out today. There's been a couple that have kind of talked about wanting to go 9 and all that, but I think I think most of them kind of want to stay at 8 because they see it as I really do think they see this 5+11 and think they want this. Let's sign up for it and play 8 conference games. We're going to get into this. We're going to get a lot of members into this, and it's going to work out well for us. But I think there's multiple reasons why I think the suits want the other formats, which is kind of the AQ driven format, because there are more, I think, revenue streams behind that. Yes. And it gets them into the 9 conference games. And Greg Sankey kind of poo-pooed on the Big Ten SEC alliance like an hour after Brian Kelly said they were all in, which was a load of crap, which I told you earlier today. But I do think there is going to be some type of membership. Well, they're going to have maybe 3 or 4 games a year, probably early in the season, and it's going to be like select teams. Yeah. And maybe it'll be a thing where every team in the league rotates into it. I don't think it's going to be a strict SEC Big Ten challenge. But that could come, and that could equal more revenue too, because I think you got to go where the money is, and that to me is where the more money is going to be. And all these schools need more money right now heading into this. We got to pay the players era, and that's where I think we're going to end up eventually. It's just messy right now, and I don't know when we'll actually get there. And there seems to be a chance where they might like kick the can down the road for at least a year. So maybe we stay at 12 one more year. Maybe we stay at 8 games in 2026 and they kind of finagle the schedule the SEC does. till we get eventually where we're going, which is 9 games, which is a 16 team, which is probably automatic bids eventually. But for now, they're just trying to get everybody on the same page.
The thing that excites me most about the potential of doing the 4-4-2-2-3 sort of deal, playing games would make conference championship weekend so much better.
I think that's not getting enough attention.
Yeah, I know some people are very much like, oh, but more games is bad for them. That would be better than playing weekend. That would be better than the wild card. That would be the best way to fix conference championship weekend, because outside of the SEC, I know we had exceptions last year. SMU and Clemson went down to the wire, but a lot of those games are stinkers, and adding some more games to it would make it so much more exciting. And it's more high stakes football between really good teams.
And it's for the Big Ten SEC. It would be 4 games on campus for your team to make the playoff.
Yeah,
on a December Saturday.
That'd be awesome.
Like I think last year, I think they said in SEC the matchups would have been LSU at Alabama in the 4-5 game.
Yeah.
And then the 3-6 game would have been Tennessee hosting South Carolina. Like, you want to talk about 2 fan bases or 2 teams that don't like each other in both those matchups. Like, that would have been like everyone would have been like, this rules. Like, I do think, like, we have moved on. The sport is different. Like, the week to week and rewarding just like pure supremacy is over. Like, it's more of a, football was very much a week to week sport. It's more of it's becoming a body of work kind of sport.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Bama kind of got left off, because their body of work, they had more cons, I think, than pros. But like, it's becoming a body of work sport, and you just have to. This is what we are now. You just kind of have to embrace it. So you got to create, I think, games or cool weekends like that. And I really do think people would really enjoy it. And I think we're overstating, like, oh, the sport is the best regular season sport. Every week is just awesome. I would beg to differ. Like, I don't think every week is awesome. Maybe it was at a time, but I think most years not. Typically, every week is not awesome. Specifically, and since the playoff era started, there's a lot of weeks where it's like, well, nothing else is getting any attention, but Alabama's playing Mississippi State, so we have to act like this is a big deal when they are a 35-point road. No offense to Mississippi State, but just games like that. Ohio State's playing Rutgers. Oh, it might be a little tricky
big new
here.
Kickoff.
They're playing a 3-7 Michigan State team, and you got to kind of act like it's a big deal, a big game when it's not. And I think in this, when you include more teams, which is what we're doing, I think it makes the regular season better. And then it sets up where you're jockeying for position the whole year, because even if you're not one, you want to get 1 or 2 because it's a guaranteed auto, but 3 is greater than being a 5 or a 6, because then you would get a home game, right? Mm-hmm. To play your way into the playoff. One winner, loser leaves town match. I just think it would be cool. I think people would really enjoy it if they would go that route. Now, I don't know if they well, I'd be interested to see what the ACC and Big 12 would do, if they would want to create a format like that, or if they would just keep their championship games as is with both teams getting in. But I think that's got a chance to really revamp it. And then how they do the seeding and how they set up the playoff, I'd be interested to see. But I'd be lying to you if I don't think that would be I would be lying to you if I said that would not work. That won't be a big, huge hit. I think it would be a monster hit for the sport. It would be awesome. And it's a Saturday, Nick, before NFL takes over, right? That is, college football still owns that Saturday, that conference championship Saturday. So instead of having, 5 or 6 games, we would have 12 or whatever. And it'd be an all day thing. You could play a couple on Friday, and then Saturday could just be a Saturday can be a day where I can't go to the Christmas party. I got to sit on my couch from noon to midnight and watch these games.
My favorite part about the spring meetings, this iteration of them, is that they provide fodder for people like us, but it's almost like they're doing their own radio bits within themselves, where, Brian Kelly saying this and Lane Kiffin saying, like, it's almost like they're taking our jobs for a week and shooting in the hip in all these hypothetical situations, and I just love it. I'm eating it all up. It's wildly entertaining for the last week of May when not much else is really going on. So I appreciate all of the updates, the anecdotes. We do have proof of life from Mark Stoops down there at Destin. There has been proof of life. We have a photograph confirmed. He is down in Destin. Maybe next year we'll make our way down to it like it. I don't. I actually have only been to Destin once. I'm not a big.
Same. I've only been to Destin once too.
Yeah, and I ended up.
It rocked. I will say I enjoyed my family vacation down there. I had a ball. I get why people love it.
We had two hiccups on our trip. It was friends getting married, and the first day we show up and we're playing volleyball on the beach, and somebody busted their head open, and we had to. I think we just did butterflies, and we like jerry rigged it shut. But it was, we had a bloody start, and then the hotel room that we checked into really smelled like cigarettes. So that was maybe not the best amenities. The place we stayed, but there's lots of places to stay. We can change it up next time, and so maybe that's where we do family vacation next year. Kids a little bit older, go like the beach a little bit more. We'll try that out then. Bring our rowback with us, our swim trunks. They got the pullovers too. They got all the gear you need at Rowback. RHOBACK.com is where you get all your gear for the summer. Promo code KSR, you're going to get $20 off your first purchase at rowback.com.
Yeah, I mean, we could go craft beers, oysters at Pompano Joe's.
Mm-hmm.
We've won Crab Trap, that one. The something Trap is a really good spot. There's all kinds of stuff. McGuire's is killer.
Is that the big like outdoor deck sort of deal?
I don't remember if they have an outdoor, but it's huge inside. I do remember that. They have like the big German pretzel as big as big as a football helmet. It is just, I mean, it was all. We went twice when we were there. I loved it. It was awesome.
The oldest, he's a big fan of the pretzel. If we go to the concession stand at the game, that's his. He doesn't like the cheese though. Cheese is too spicy.
Now that you say that, they did have the huge outdoor patio. Because now I remember, because we had to wait like an hour and a half or something. But it was fine because we were just out there on the patio.
Outside, hanging out.
They had like a big green drink, I forgot, that everyone got like in a fish bowl or something. That was like a popular drink for that spot. So yeah, it was a cool place.
Tukey still does fish bowls?
I don't know.
I know.
Do they still do the Wednesday thing?
It's Tuesdays. $2 Tuesdays.
Do we need to stop one day after practice this season?
Yeah. Was Wednesday the punch card? Was Wednesday the punch card?
I thought Wednesday was fishbowl night.
Gosh, I can't remember now. I know $2 Tuesday was the go-to though. Big fan of $2 Tuesdays.
The paddock.
That was Tukey's and Tin Roof both had $2 Tuesdays. It was like $2 just beers and what else? Man.
Yeah, that was
$2 drinks. Can't beat it.
When the summer came, that was got out a little bit more on the weekdays.
While we're going down a weird rabbit hole, RIP to Norm, our guy George Went, passed away last week, and I had a couple of realizations. One, George Went was my age when Cheers started, and I was just like,
"Yeah,
oh God, I'm not as old as Norm."
He was younger than I thought he would be.
Yeah,
like when I saw his age. Yeah,
he was. He looked much older, but I think most people just looked older back in the day. And two, I just never watched Cheers, and so we fired that bad boy up, and it's great. It's just a great TV show, good, wholesome sitcom. Did the world just smell like cigarettes everywhere you went? Because seeing them smoke in bars, part of me is like, oh man, I kind of miss it, but also like, I don't miss the clothes just when you got home, your jacket smelling like cigarette smoke. That just, I guess the world just all smelled like cigarettes until 20 years ago.
I think it was just kind of a...
So like 2003? Is that when the smoking bans started hitting?
Yeah, I think, that's when I think most people started to realize, oh, this is really bad for us. We probably shouldn't do that.
Well, and 80s cigarette smoke. Oh, great. Weed smoke, jail. They'll lock them up, throw away the key. We've completely flipped the script. Now you got to be
Yeah.
21 about cigarettes.
Yeah, the youth these days will never understand smoking section and non-smoking section at restaurants.
But they will understand smoking weed in a restaurant, like out of a vape pen. Right?
Vape section, no vape section.
Yeah, but cigarette. Oh man, that was a random rabbit hole. Apologies for that, but I can't apologize too much because why the hell not? We're talking spring meetings. Is there anything else we need to put a bow on spring meetings before we move on to two other Kentucky football developments?
Yeah, I think that's about it. Like next month, I believe it's like June 18th. Sankey and the other power conference commissioners and the CFP executive and CFP people meet to kind of discuss where they are. The Big Ten and SEC has documentation that they have power to decide whatever, so they could push something through if they wanted to. And so we'll see where that goes, if anything goes there. So like that, I believe that's June 18th. That's the next, I would say, big day on that. And then the House settlement, like I think the latest that the decision will be made is like June 5th. So like next week we should hear
I just
something
don't
on
believe
that.
That's one thing we didn't mention is that a lot of the stuff they're talking about, it's annoying that it's still all in generalities because the House settlement hasn't actually been ratified and put the wheels into motion.
Right.
It's just so that part of it was kind of annoying. This is our point of the podcast where I got to tip my cap to you because you had a little scoop this weekend or this week, excuse me, a little Scoopy McScooperson.
Every once in a while, I'll try to be like an Ian Rappaport, an Adam Schefter, a Shams Charania, a Pete Nakos. Who are the other big newsbreakers?
I mean, you've covered a lot of them. The others are dorks.
Jeff Passan, I think he's the baseball guy.
Yeah, he's the big baseball guy. We're not going to mention Thamel. Suck it, Thamel. I still won't forgive you for Eric Bledsoe's transcripts and like flying to Turkey to get to the bottom of Venus Cantor situation. Which you want to talk about going back
about different
to,
era.
Yeah, of cigarettes and all that. I mean, the amount that people cared over grades and eligibility, then it was like people wanted to get kids in trouble and get them ineligible. Now it's like, oh, let them play. Sue their way. Who cares? Let them play.
Yeah, well, now it's instead of all that, you're mostly. It seems like the tables have turned and people are mostly trying to just no NCAA. You can't do this. It's not antitrust.
Right. Shoes on the other foot.
Yeah, but the news went over and it's gone over about how I expected. Kentucky gave Eric Wolford, the offensive line coach, a 1-year extension, and they bumped his pay $100,000, and then he'll get the additional $50,000 more in the extension. But I do think something that people are missing. He has a $500,000 buyout, which is very large for an assistant coach, and that has kind of he owes whatever is left on that deal to Kentucky if he were to leave, if he has a year left. So this gets him in a situation where he'll have a year left for this year and next year.
So that makes the way you explain it, they're incentivizing him to stay.
They are incentivized to kind of, yes.
Yeah.
Because if he were to leave.
And he didn't have another
they would
year
get the
on
money
his
back.
deal. Yeah.
They would get most of that money back, essentially. And they would have enough to. Right. Because they only paid $300,000 last year because of how Alabama still owed him money, so they didn't have to pay him a ton, and then they give him a bump. So I think if you look at it in that,
from a spreadsheet standpoint, it makes sense.
Yeah.
From a PR standpoint, it just doesn't though, because nobody should get any contract extension after last year. I mean, that's just
well, I think with him specifically, he is just a lightning rod.
Yeah, and they didn't perform well last year at that spot, so.
Well, the fan, I think we just got to call it what it is. This is the guy that replaced John Schlarman. left on a recruiting trip.
Mm-hmm.
Like, took off the UK polo, put on the Alabama polo, and started recruiting, it's recruiting. Everything is fair. He did all that, and then you bring him back. So he was kind of the person who kind of created the problem. You bring him back, and it was a disaster last year. Now, it wasn't all his fault. And he didn't really get to do kind of what you hired him to do, which was kind of build the room.
Right.
But it was bad. And so, like, I think there's a reason why we didn't – we kind of, like, had to sleuth our way to find out about it.
Right.
It wasn't publicized for a reason.
Right. We didn't get that press release about the big contract extension.
Yeah, so this fan base, like, they are all like, they're just going to think negatively about Wolford because of those things. And they were, honestly, Nick, they were told to think that way. Anybody can coach this offensive line. It was afraid like when he left. They were mad about it.
Yeah.
You know, and you're big boys, you get over it. You hug it out to Ari Goldline, hug it out, expletive.
Yeah.
But the fan base is not, they're not hugging it out. So they're upset, and it's just there's they can do no good right now in the kind of the public sphere.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is just another thing I think for people to get really kind of upset about. I look at it too as like it's a little weird to me too, Nick, when I consider the whole defensive staff is on expiring contracts.
Right.
Bush Hamden is on the second year of a 3-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
Eldamian Washington is on the first year of a 2-year deal, and Vince Merrill is on the second year of a 3-year contract extension he received. Those are the only coaches under contract, and then now Wolford he's gone from being in a contract year to not. Those are the only coaches that have deals, and it's on the offensive side of the ball. That's not what you would really think, if you kind of looked at the results. Mm-hmm. So that to me was kind of interesting, because I think if you're just going to have an honest conversation about like what happens if the season doesn't go well, right? Let's just say they don't go to a bowl game.
Yeah, it's you clean house.
The fans are pissed. You're going to have to repackage this and try to sell it some way. I think, Stoops has not played the fire sale.
Everybody.
Yeah, card, and try to just gut it that way. I think that's potentially the path they would take, but the way how it's setting up now, that might be like a defensive total rebuild if they were to do that. Now, I'm not saying they would or wouldn't, but that's just interesting to me that you've got all these kind of offensive contracts locked up, and you don't really on defense. It's just interesting. Now that you have this many in a contract year is not, I wouldn't say that's kind of abnormal. It's just kind of how it happens sometimes. But I think it's something to make sure antennas go up, at least to me.
It's it made for an exciting few hours online too. It's very rare that we put out something related to Kentucky football where we're not getting ratio to Bolivia right now like it. So I'm sure your mentions were looking great of all the people who were thrilled with the news. But they hired him to bring players. That's what he's supposed to do right now. And maybe he gets some more this weekend.
Yeah. I think, and then I think the other problem with it is, Nick, he did something they haven't done, which is get, like, I would say, 2 solid recruiting wins in the portal at tackle.
Yeah.
That's something they haven't done.
The other part too was they were asking a lot, and I didn't think that they could accomplish it, because it's just a lot of players. I mean,
yeah.
And we don't know if they're hits, but at least you spread it out on paper, like it's a much better looking room.
Yeah. You just look at that. He's upgraded that in that regard. So I get wanting to reward him and also kind of locking in that buyout for another year. The least the way I read the contract is how that works. So I think I get from that, because I think if you asked them about it, I think that's what they would I don't know if they would say that, but I think that's what the thought process was.
I don't know how to make a hard out other than I do want to transition to recruiting because we're going to a big part of the year. And speaking of recruiting, do you want to get recruited? Andy Ludicky, he's kind of a recruiter. He's a franchise consultant who's hooking people up, helping them find a new career path or a side hustle that can make you profitable. He's a franchise consultant at myperfectfranchise.net, and he's got experience connecting with people and helping them find the right franchise that fits not only your financial accessibility, what you can do, but also just your passions and your time constraints, whether it's sports, restaurants, whatever it may be. There are plenty of businesses out there that Andy can hook you up with. Andy at myperfectfranchise.net's the email. You can also give him a call or email him at andy@myperfectfranchise.net to see what you can spend, what you can find in the world of franchising. Andy Ludicky at myperfectfranchise.net. Luckett, it's officially recruiting season. Over the next 4 weeks, it will be an official visit time over at the University of Kentucky, which means if you want to see the potential future of Kentucky football, just head on over to Jeff Ruby's, man. They're all going to be there. And the number one headline I have before we get into just who's going to be here this weekend is that from my perspective, the new calendar isn't as fun because these guys used to show up and participate in camps and like compete for scholarships. And since things got moved up, now they just show up for official visits. So we don't get to do any in-person really evaluation of these guys, right? Like there's no Jordan Watkins versus Drew Phillips. Who's gonna are they gonna give them both spots? Turns out they're both just NFL players in that instance. But that was fun back in the day, and so we don't get as much of that anymore. We usually see the kids camping that are much younger. What's different this year too, Luckett, is just Kentucky's not being selective at all. I mean, it used to be like a big recruiting weekend was like 8. By our count, there's 12 plus in every weekend except for this upcoming one, and that doesn't include midweek guys getting sprinkled in here and there as well. So the sheer number, the volume is up from before, and maybe some of that is they're just saying, screw it, we're going all in now to play catch up. I don't know what it is, but they are upping the ante when it comes to official visitors. And some of it also might be out of necessity, Lucky, because they only got one commit. And everybody else besides Missouri and Florida has like 8. Alabama was one exception. They only have 5 commitments, but it's like a top 10 class. They're all like 5-star kids. So compared to their peers, they are much further behind. And this is the time where they got to play catch up in this month of June.
Yeah, it's hard to be selective when you've got one commit, kind of to your point there. They need to get guys on campus and try to close these guys. There's names popping up fast, rapidly, and we've kind of done some reporting on that. To me, offensively, wide receiver and offensive line are 2 big positions. Kind of, they're getting a ton of receivers and a ton of offensive linemen on campus, and it's just like I've kind of wrote about this on Campus Board. There's a couple of guys this week we believe that they could land, but like how aggressive are they going to be, or do they going to wait it out? They're not in really a position to wait it out in some circumstances.
Right.
So we're still trying to figure out like kind of the numbers, like what are the numbers they're looking at here? All that's kind of a little bit complicated.
Well,
and so we'll have a better grasp, really, I would say. But before even that last weekend gets here, I think we'll have a better feel of kind of where all these recruitments are trending and then what that looks like from a portal strategy potentially going into next year. Because we've seen them want to still stick with this high school model and sign 20 plus guys, but I just don't know if that's in the cards this year. It might just be a 13, 14 man class and then load up portal.
The other part too, when you mention offensive line and receivers, the three coaches you've seen the most that are most noticeable in these recruitments, it's Wolford, LD Washington, and
Mm-hmm.
Chris Collins. Like that, I don't.
And Brad White's got
Yeah,
more
yeah.
than a handful of guys.
But th- not seeing much elsewhere.
Yeah, it's been a quiet cycle for Vince.
Yeah.
Just putting it as, in simplest terms possible. It's just been quiet.
Yeah, and the other part that's weird too is just like what are they asking of Bush Hamden as a recruiter? We understood it last year when they were like, "Hey, here's these kind of quarterbacks. Do you like them enough? Are you going to take them?" Now he's trying to get that Oscar Rios kid who's going to Elite 11. That could be a big win. But outside of like a couple of quarterbacks, how else is he involved? We don't know. It's very much a mystery. But at least you talk about this weekend, and we've got the 5. I guess it's 5 confirmed, and then there's a kid who's supposed to be coming here on Monday, and I just include him in that post. But they're up on the website right now. The 2 receivers are pretty damn good, right? There's a kid from Louisiana that has LD Washington's name written all over it. He's currently committed to USC, but USC did the 2014 Mark Stoops thing where they just got 20. They have 26 commits right now. What?
Yeah, you know what that means. So, like 8 of those won't end
Yeah.
up signing.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
Roderick Tezino, I think. I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name yet.
yeah, he's one of those that is from Louisiana who pledged early to USC, but that feels like a prime flip candidate, even though he's also being recruited heavily elsewhere.
Yeah, and then the other one, Nick, is Justin Williams.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of this running back, wide receiver hybrid. Had over 1,000 yards receiving, 1,000 yards rushing last year in the state of Florida.
Like ever heard of that?
This dude's an absolute stud. Like this guy's a stud.
Yeah.
Now Kentucky's probably not getting it.
Yeah. He's from Gainesville. He's going to OB Florida State.
I would be shocked if he doesn't end up a Gator.
Right.
But I think it's the early returns. I think on LaDamian Washington as a recruiter are very positive to me. I think he played a role for them in the portal quickly when he got here. And then I also think he's been in on a lot of guys. And there are some guys that they were in on that they've kind of lost, like a Dallas Dickerson out of Georgia. It's like this track speedster, played for the best team in Georgia, North Oconee, last year, undefeated state champion. Kentucky
David
was
Pollock's
not
team, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
They were in on him early, and then Oklahoma and Florida come in late. Oklahoma kind of bumped Kentucky's official visit. Now, I don't know if we haven't heard that Dickerson's going to be coming on a different date, but they've been able to pivot quickly and get other Washington in general at receiver. So I feel they've got options there. So I feel a little optimistic about receiver, and I think Eric Wolford has done a good job of kind of setting up, giving them options on the offensive line. I think for them with that, it's going to kind of be on how long I think they're going to have to fight playing the waiting game / not, or closing, and kind of delicately kind of walk that. Other positions, it's a little less clear. Like there's only a couple options really at tailback right now. DeVecchio, Austin's kind of UK, Minnesota.
Great name, DeVecchio.
There's a Texas running back that included Kentucky in his top 5, but doesn't have an official visit. Amani Martin out of Port Arthur Memorial. And then Amarius Thomas Clemens is committed to Florida State, but he's taking official visits. He'll be at South Carolina this weekend. Kentucky will get a visit later. It's another one they're really in on. But then it's some other positions like a tight end, quarterback, like we mentioned. It's a little like, well, what are they doing there? And so we'll have to wait and see. And defensively, of course, they don't have a commit. Jarvis Strickland's tackle is the only commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And for them, they need players, I think, at all levels. And so kind of how fast they move, just where they're at. I'm going to have a updated defensive big board up at KSR Plus on Thursday. I'm trying to remember what day it is. Thursday. The offensive one dropped today, and it's basically like the guys we know that they're presently recruiting at this moment and kind of where all these recruitments stand. And I had that blurb about Dickerson in there earlier today. And so the defense won't be out tomorrow, but they just got to they're playing catch up, and that's going to be a busy week, and a potentially stressful week if they're not able to close on some of these targets, or stressful months, excuse me, if they're not able to close on some of these targets. And it's going to be like, well, where are you going, and then how do you? I don't know. It's just another thing that's kind of would be a hard sell, because it's a little different in this day and age, Nick. But recruiting used to be a sign, like, if you weren't recruiting well and like things were going south win-loss record wise, that could be a sign that football very much was a year-to-year momentum sport.
Mm-hmm.
And I still believe it is to a certain extent, but it's easier to kind of flip it now. If you lost that momentum, it could just be hard to get it back. And it feels like after the results last year and then what we've seen on the recruiting trail, feels like Kentucky's lost a lot of momentum now.
The position that worries me the most is defensive line, because they were able to do a portal Band-Aid this year for some, but it's going to be an old group. I like the Kalen Edwards get. That was a great get last year, and you're confident about where Gerard Mayo is going, but a lot of guys have to really hit for them, but then you have to have reinforcements. And guys like Khalil Saunders, who were 3 stars that you really didn't think much of at the time, that turned into ball players, that they got to hit there, and it's hard to do when you don't have any already on the board or in the fold at this point. So the recruiting chops are going to be tested in the coming weeks. We could have some commitments this weekend. Who knows? But I believe I don't have the calendar pulled up. I think Monday is also report day. So Monday is when we're back. Everyone's all the way back. The workouts will be underway at the Joe Kraft Football Training Facility.
Facility, yes. You get it. You'll get it eventually.
Again, eventually. That starts Monday. So we're all the way back. Camps will start the following week. So we're kind of bouncing vacation time off one another. I'm going to get a stab at it first, and Lucky's going to take some time off. But you better believe we'll have you all covered here and on KS Board. Remember, it's UK1. We'll get you 2 months for $1 to check it out. So don't miss out on any of that. Lucky, did you see the score to your ball game? You're St. X High Tigers. Whew. Yikes. 3-0 deficit in 3 innings. So
Rally Cats. Here we go.
Yeah, bring him home, Tony Burke. Bring him home. But I think that's going to do it for us today. Oh, wow. People forget Stephen Peake was a Trinity Rock baseball player back in the day.
Disgusting. So. You disgust me. Swing like a rock.
Oh, man. Well, I'm going to go enjoy some time off, and I think most of my time off is just going to be doing chores. So you know how that goes. Staycation, workcation. We got to get our ducks in a row. We'll get them all in a row. Enjoy some Florida, but we'll be catching back up soon, and hopefully have some commitments, get this ball rolling in the right direction for the Wildcats. He's Adam Luckett. I'm Nick Roush. Go Cats, and go Kroger.